Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Magic Arena Run. Today it's August and it's been about close to a month since the release of Amonkhet Remastered. We've had it for quite a while. Have you guys been enjoying it? I pretty much have been enjoying it, ups and downs notwithstanding. But I did notice that there are a few cards that kind of didn't seem to make it. I'm gonna pretty much go over them on this list. So these are the top 10 cards that didn't make it to Amonkhet Remastered. So for to qualify for this, you have to either be from the original Amonkhet set, from Hour of Devastation, or from the masterpiece of Amonkhet Invocations. That said, Wizards did take a little bit of artistic license in here. That's why we have cards like Collected Company and Hornet Queen and Totsis in being fitted in here. That's actually a very interesting way to get some reprints without having to wait for their time. But that said, since I'm limiting myself to the above mentioned ones, so there is one card that didn't quite make it, but it would have really fit, sort of. So this would be the original Desert from Arabian Nights, reprinted in Time Spiral. And this would have been an interesting one to get back. We would have had the updated colorless mana symbol update on the mana ability. But the activated ability might be a tad too powerful. It would have shifted the game way towards control, so that I can see why this was not put in. This would have been very interesting at least, and I figured this would be a good candidate for the not quite there list. And now let's go move on. So number 10, we have Consuming Fervor. Now Amonkhet Hour of Devastation, they have it is quite slanted towards well, let's see. Amonkhet was slanted very aggro. Hour of Devastation slowed that way down. So that's why we see Consuming Fervor here from the original Amonkhet. This one is actually just a color-shifted print of Unstable Mutation from... I think Unstable Mutation was from the Dark, or was it even from Arabian Nights? I think it was from the Dark. I'm pretty sure it's not Homelands. But either case... Yeah, I'm gonna have to research that in a bit, but I'll talk over it. Consuming Fervor probably would have made it way too aggro, so I can understand why this one did not quite make the cut. It's a bit of a shame though. It's actually very interesting. It's a 1 mana pump effect. Oh, it's actually from Arabian Nights, so this would have been a very this reprint would have been very good. Would have been a very good one. Yeah, but that said, not quite making the cut here. I can understand why. It's actually quite aggro as it is. I don't think 1 mana +3/+3, if you're the -1/-1 counters might not matter, because there are actually ways to remove it in Remastered, and your opponent might be dead by then, so I can see why. And this one's not exactly high in the priority list, so here you go. Number 10, Consuming Fervor. Number 9, Jace's Defeat. Actually, of all the defeats, only Liliana's defeat quite made it. The other ones, Gideon's defeat, Chandra's defeat, Nissa's defeat, they did not make it. Jace's defeat here definitely did not make it. This would have been the most interesting one because if you read the story about Jace's defeat, it pretty much leads on to the next set, which is Ixalan and Rivals of Ixalan. It leads to that storyline where, okay, spoiler alert, Jace literally gets mind wiped and gets stranded in a deserted island plane. Actually, not quite. It's more like gets deserted in the West Indies, if you know what I mean, and gets caught up with the pirates of the not quite Caribbean. It's a very interesting story, and this one would have been a lead up to. That said, the card itself, counter target blue spell, very narrow. Getting a weak benefit, interesting but weak benefit if it's a Jace Planeswalker spell. If it was just a blue Planeswalker, so this would have been a very good shoe-in, like Teferi. And that said, we do have a better option in Mystical Dispute, so I can see why Jace's defeat did not make the cut. I can actually see why most of the defeats did not make the cut. Probably makes me feel like Liliana's defeat should not have made the cut either. There could have been better replacements for that, but that's the situation we're in. So here we go. Number 9, Jace's defeat. Defeated. Speaking of cycles that are not complete, number 8, Kefnets Last Word. So this is 2 blue blue. It's straight up straight up the mana cost of original control magic. In fact, it's slightly better in that it can also gain control of an artifact or enchantment as well. It's worse in that it's also better in the sense that it's a one-shot control change effect. It's not an enchantment like control magic where blow up the enchantment, the effect is gone. The downside is your lands do not untap during your next untap step. It could be played around with. As I said, of the last word cycle from Hour of Devastation, only Bontu's last word made it. So none of the other gods got their last words in, and kind of interesting at that. This probably would have been a really powerful effect. Maybe a bit tad on the unfair side, especially when you can, say, gain control of target God Pharaoh's Gift or gain control of target Elspeth controls death that with one that's already in Act 2 and one more and you get your best stuff. You could see the interesting shenanigans that could be done with this. Alas, it's not meant to be. So number 8, Kefnet's Last Word, did not get in. Number 7, Lay Bare the Heart. This one's along the line of 2 mana, reveal his or her hand, choose a card up with certain limitations and get the player to discard the card. This one, the limitation is either non-legendary, non-land. So you could discard Questing Beast, you could discard not Embercleave, that's legendary. Not Questing Beast either, that's legendary. Not a Teferi, that's legendary. Not even an Oath of Kaya, that also happens to be legendary. I can actually see why this one did not fit in. It didn't really fit in back in the day. But having this as an additional option, sure, it would be annoying if you run into the player that is turn 1 Duress or turn 1 Divest into turn 2 Lay Bare the Heart or Agonizing Remorse. You don't even have to go into blue to get Taught Erasure. And this would have been a very interesting way to pick apart combo. Certain combo decks, like, you won't be able to get Muxus with this, but you could get every other relevant goblin, like you could take out the Goblin Matron and whatnot. So maybe this one might be a bit too high. I think this is more of a 10 than a 7, but this is how I put it. And I can imagine some of the possibilities. I can also imagine why some people would not like yet another target opponent reveals his or her hand and get it picked apart card. So there you go. Number 7, Lay Bare the Heart. Number 6, Resolute Survivors. Now there are some exert shenanigans here, but I feel like this is the one card that benefited the most out of exert. So this one's 1 red white for a 3/3. You can exert it as it attacks, and whenever you exert a creature, not necessarily the survivors, the Resolute Survivors will deal a damage to each opponent and you'll gain 1 life. So this one would give you additional reach, especially in draft. You got cards like Ancrop Crasher, Gust Walker. You can just exert. You can even splash green if you want to go into Hooded Brawler. This one will give you a lot of extra damage and some amount of survivability. It would have shifted exert. It would have been an interesting weird signal because exert was really signaled more towards green if you notice the card. So maybe that's why this card did not fit, which is a shame. This one's a very good payoff. I would rather have this. I would rather have the exert in red white. Green could have some of the exert cards, but probably would not need another exert form. So this is pretty much my choice. Number 6, Resolute Survivors. I would have liked to have this one. Then again, it's probably a case of aggro being way too aggro, and there is some conflict because this one just pretty much made exert. You have to run exert. There's really no reason not to. Some of the interesting parts of gameplay is when do I exert, when do I not exert, when do I feel bad because I clicked attack all, and that one does not give you the choice to exert. You have to do it manually. That said, this is my number 6 pick, Resolute Survivors. They did not quite survive the cut. Number 5, Geru with Eyes Open. This guy was actually a character in the story. He's not so much a character now. pretty much we only hear of Samut now and then. Basriket is the new Amonkhet representative, so maybe that's why we don't hear much about him. But otherwise, this was his legendary creature card. It's a 5 mana, so it's 3 white for a 4/3 vigilance. When he enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a Planeswalker card and put it into your hand. Also, if a source would deal damage to a Planeswalker you control, prevent 1 of that damage. So, I kind of put him slightly higher because he is a story character. We did get Hapatra, we did get Temet. We got 2 copies of Samut for goodness sake. But, then again, imagine running into someone playing Super Friends. So they got a bunch of Planeswalkers. Your typical way of getting rid of them, let's say you're not running black, so it's either damage or attacking in combat. So this one's basically absorb 1. So it's gonna make your Planeswalkers even harder to remove. And he gets to search for 1. So you could kind of get away with like multiple copies of Geru and a single copy of Ugin. You monster. That said, I can see why he did not make the cut now that I talked myself out of it, but it's a shame. It's a shame story character does not make the cut. Then again, story isn't quite so much in these days. We actually have never heard from Geru ever since the events of Amonkhet and Hour of Devastation, so we don't know. Maybe when we revisit, it's Geru Eyes Wide Shut or something like that. But anyway, there you go, number 5. Geru with eyes open. You know, we can't see him in this set. John Cena. Number 4, Glyph Keeper, 3 blue. Here's another probably way too overpowered rare. So it's a 5/3 with flying. Whenever Glyph Keeper becomes the target of a spell ability for the first time each turn, counter that spell or ability. So flyer that if you can't defeat in combat, you're going to have to spend you're gonna have to waste an ability or waste a spell, even worse. And to top it off, there's M-Bomb for 7 mana, so you get to deal with him again. Actually, I'm not sure it's a him, but doesn't matter. He's not in Amonkhet Remastered. Very powerful, but also very annoying. Sure, white and blue are pretty much the main M-Bomb colors. They're the creature token color. This would have been a very good topper for that, but might be a very annoying topper now that I mention it. And we have better cards from the Eternalized set. We have the white Eternalized card. We have the blue Eternalized card. Actually, we missed out on the Dorn Pouncer. That's another one I'm considering, but this one's an even bigger loss, but probably for good reason. So number 4, Glyph Keeper. We don't get to keep him. Number 3, Hapatra's Mark, a single green mana. Remember Ranger's Guild? It's just been recently reprinted in M21. This one is better. So it's not only target creature control gains hexproof, remove all -1/-1 counters from it. Not always relevant, but green was also the other color that loved putting -1/-1 counters on its own creatures. So you can imagine an Ornery Kudu or the huge crocodile, or if you're playing black, there's the Baleful Amit or the Soul Stinger. Those guys are relatively cheap because they put -1/-1 counters, but with a single green mana, you could undo all that, and maybe even protect from a removal spell as well. So this one would have been way too powerful. This one was actually a very decent card in Amonkhet in Amonkhet Limited, and I think there was some room for it in Constructed, if I'm not mistaken. Trying to remember. No, I don't think it's seen much play because Kaladesh overshadowed it. But otherwise, this would have been a very, very annoying card to run into. It would have opened the way for green-black super aggro. That would have been an interesting sight. But I don't know how happy people would feel about this. So maybe it's a good thing this one did not see the cut. But otherwise, pretty good. Number 3, Hapatra's Mark. Missed the mark. Number 2, Fate of the Devoted. For those who get annoyed with cycling, whether it be cycling in Standard or cycling in Historic, this would have made you even more annoyed. For 2 and a black mana, it's an enchantment that whenever you cycle or discard a card, so not limited to cycling, you could, if you were a self-discard, like say, you were running Red Trail of Possibility or Cathartic Reunion, you may pay 1. for each card discarded or cycled. If you do, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So if it was not bad enough that you had to deal with the one-shot Zenith Flare from out of nowhere, you could also be dinged little by little. And it would probably, in fact, it would increase the reason we would end up with different variations of cycling though. This would have been really powerful in Limited, maybe too powerful, so that's probably why it didn't see the cut for the set. For Constructed, it would have been, again, on the verge of very powerful as well. We're not so sure what kind of we're not so sure how many more variants of cycling we would encounter, but this would have been a really powerful enabler for that. So there you go, number 2, Fate of the Devoted. Not so much. We're not kind of devoted to this card. And number 1, our only representative from the Invocation set, Blood Moon. So for all those complaining about the 3 mana, 4 mana bases, complaining about all those powerful lands you can't keep, this would have been the best solution. All those non-basic lands are now mountains, and most of the time they're not exactly running red, so this would be an easy insta-kill against those Sultai decks. It would be an insta-kill against some certain very greedy mana bases. They still run basic lands though. Fabled Passage kind of ensured that part. But even then, if you put it in the right time, a Fabled Passage would not be able to dig afterwards if this is still in place. So I would not be surprised if we will see this eventually in the future, because it's kind of a way to keep those decks in check. It's a way to keep those decks honest. I would really love to see this one back. But maybe Amonkhet Invocations might be a bit too early. We do have Blood Sun, we have Alpine Moon. Those are fairer versions, but they don't really see much play. Even when we were running against Field of the Dead, we only kind of expected probably 1 in 20 decks that would even run some variant of that. This probably would have neutered that one a lot, and neutered a lot of other decks in the balance. Maybe a bit too powerful, but this would have been definitely my choice for number 1. This is something I would have liked to see instead. And that's it for this one. Is there any card that you remember from Amonkhet or Hour of Devastation, or any of the invocations that I missed? Please let me know in the comments. Is there any card that you think would be a good fit, even if it did not fit those categories, like say the Desert, or some card from Arabian Nights, or some card that had cycling or -1/-1 counters? Please let me know in the comments also. As always, thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you guys again next time. Take care. God bless. Stay safe wherever you are. Have a great day, everyone.